I'll hand the floor over to her, make a big welcome to her, but not too loud for Gavin. Thanks.
Good morning. I have to speak really softly because Gavin's sitting here. Hi, Gavin. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. It's my first trip to Australia, so it's very sad that it's only 4 packed days of seeing clients and talking about sustainability, but I'm determined to see the sea this afternoon, so I will make it to the beach. But thank you as well to Cafe Culture, to Sean, Justine, for having me here and making the opportunity to talk about sustainability. I think it's something which needs to build a lot of awareness around it and an understanding. And it's great that you took the time at 9 a.m. to be here for this hot subject, so thank you very much. So as I was introduced, my name is, how do we move this? Down? Down. There we go. My name is Juliette Caulkin. I live in Amsterdam. I'm based where our head office is in Amsterdam. Nice picture. This was actually taken a few days ago when I had to get my visa for Australia. So while you're getting up in the sun, think of us biking through the horizontal rain to work along the canals, but very nice. My aim in the next 45 minutes is to present sustainability to you and leave 10 minutes at the end so that you can ask questions and perhaps start any discussions you've had around sustainability. So, at the end of the day, it's this big word everybody uses. And what does it mean?
Sustainability is about providing training tools, about empowering people, about facilitating good farmers to be better businessmen, about creating opportunities. It's not about telling people what to do, but enabling producers how to do things differently. It's a journey together.
Well, the first thing, just to get clear, sustainability is not charity. There are 3 buzzwords going around at the moment: sustainability, traceability, and transparency. And the thing is, at the end of the day, it all has to do with business. And it's all about a better business. And this is what we have to keep in mind. Global pressure on the world is tremendous. We're reaching 9 million people in 2050. We're squeezing the earth and we're squeezing its resources. And at the end of the day, we have to look at the production practices of the last 10,000 years have to be used to create a supply needed in the next 50 years. And how are we going to do this? What we've got to do is make the connections between all of these different existing supply chains. It's a lot of work, it's a lengthy process, but sustainable products provide traceability and transparency. And best of all, not only are such practices clear wins for the farmers who grow them, but also wins for the manufacturers and the retailers out there who can capitalize on this value add. We want to make the connection of economy, environment, and social responsibility. Some of you may know Paul Pullman from Unilever. He talks about an equitable capitalism. And this is where we have to look at sustainability. So in order to lead towards improved quality of life and a long-term viable approach to process improvements, we need to work on the basic principles of the concept of sustainability. So this isn't a charity, it isn't a handout, it's about balancing the growing economy while protecting the environment and social responsibility. And the way we look at that is very much from the economic pillar. So there are many definitions to the sustainability. It can be anywhere from separating paper and glass, as we do in Holland, to collecting aluminum cans, and it means something different to each one of you out there. That makes it an opportunity to use in your businesses and makes it difficult for people to understand, because what is it? But pure and simply just remembering that you want to balance an economic achievement with the natural resources of the earth. What we want to do is make an acknowledgement that there is this connection, and that's the acknowledgement in purely breaking it down to coffee in a minute. What is important is to, as John Elkington has said, if we refuse the challenge implied by the triple bottom line, we risk extinction. This triple bottom line is essential to corporations now. So it's not just profit and loss, it's also taking in the environmental, social, and economic viewpoint of a business. If that isn't enough, say, to convince some, we have here from the General Assembly the UN report that we need to double the food production by 2050 to meet the world's food needs. And in order to do that, we need to look at the hundreds of thousands of smallholders out there who are producing and be able to give them a way to produce in a better fashion. So sustainable agriculture at the end of the day is securing and delivering a long-term supply of the ingredients we need in order to guarantee quality and quantity and deliver competitive value. So sustainability isn't this extra add-on, this greenwashing marketing tool. Sustainability needs to be looked at as giving us a quality and quantity supply over time in whatever product that happens to be. What does this mean to you out there, to industry, to stakeholders, to consumers, to farmers? At the end of the day, sustainability, pure and simply, is managing risk, whichever risks those are in your part of the industry. We need to use the traceability piece to lower the cost in the supply chain. We want to provide a reliable supply chain, and producers, manufacturers, suppliers, and retailers are all part of that. The end piece, we get into that in a minute, a certification piece, can be used for protecting and enhancing company reputation, wherever it is along that line. So that's sustainability. We have traceability. At the end of the day, what's the traceability piece? There is no sustainability without traceability. Because if you can't follow what you're doing, how are we going to improve it? And how are we going to know? If we start at the bottom, say, of this pyramid, at the end of the day, traceability is purely a process and a tool. It gives us transparency, which is an idea that everybody wants to have. Transparent supply chain, transparency in a story. Because at the end of the day, what are you building? Truly is trust. And wherever that is, whether it's trust with your producer or whether it's trust with your consumer, that's what the traceability offers. When you're trying to do this in global supply chains, though, traceability is tough, as you all know. But we need to spend lots of time on it. We need to give a win for the farmers who are growing it, so that they can show what they're doing. Manufacturers of the finished products want to have this transparency. And at the end of the day, marketers can capitalize on this transparency by value add to the product. Why do we need to do it? We need the integrity of the product. We need to support the quality assurance. We need to support the practices that they are being complied with. We give consumers confidence with traceability. And at the end of the day, just support industry's economic sustainability. How does it work in the system? In the coffee world, it works that a producer who is certified sells his product to the next person in the chain. Let's say it's the exporter in this instance. They make a sales announcement and a unique number is produced. This number is carried on to the next person in the chain and checked all along the way, so that when, it's very small here, but I will give these slides to Justine and she can see how she can hand them out. But all along the way to the end, where it is, you hit a trace button, and you have then a document which is able to prove that this product came from this place. And this is used by huge corporations all over the world. DE is one of the biggest buyers of UTZ, and they use it to tell many of the stories that they need to at the consumer end, but also to use it just to show how their sustainability purchasing is increasing over time. So the traceability offers the ability to show that products have been created sustainably, purely, if it says it's certified, is it? Yes or no? It's used along the chain, with chain of custody for the processing, warehousing, transformation, to show that it's delivered sustainably. And at the end of the day, if somebody wants to market that piece, it can be, and it can be done in a credible and assured way. We want to, at the end of the day, optimize this value chain. We want to be able to look at it, we want to be able to use the information from it, which can be used in many ways. Producers can use it to look at plots. They can look at how they want to change things from one year to the next. Companies can use it to optimize supply chain. We improve profitability with it, and we want to make sure that we can keep producing more sustainable coffee. You cannot just have a code of conduct for a producer and then trace it along if you're also not making sure that along the way there's chain of custody certification within each of the players in the chain. So everybody in the chain of an UTZ certified purchase has chain of custody, warehouse, exporter, roaster, whoever you are. So that's a sustainability and traceability piece. And that's what I say, that exists everywhere. That's there, that's something, that's the dynamic of the world that we're working in. So how does UTZ come into existence? Who is the UTZ piece? Well, UTZ exists pure and simply because markets want to know. They want to know, how was my product produced? Where did it come from? And above all, because there's a responsibility to take care of people and planet, which is arising in all of the products which are hitting the world market. So UTZ at the end of the day is about better farming and a better future. Our vision is where sustainable farming becomes a norm. Perhaps in 20 years we can get rid of all the labels. At the moment there are about 450 labels in the world market. So that shows you how confused a consumer can be, and also how we can never market 450 labels. At a certain point, sustainable farming has to be a norm. The purchasing, the sourcing, it just is a norm. We cannot buy conventional anymore. But in order to get there, we have some work to do. We work with the three components very closely of the supply chain. So with the farmers, the UTZ Code of Conduct implements good agricultural practices. That's the base. Training farmers to produce good quality product in volume. Then with industry, we would want to get them to invest and reward sustainable production. And at the end of the day, the traceability gives consumers the trust that they can have in enjoying a product. Sustainable farming helps farmers, workers, and their families fulfill their ambitions, and at the same time contributes to the safeguarding the world's natural resources. So for us, the importance of this, it starts with the farming practices. It starts with a good business. Whether that's a good business for farmers or your good business as retailers or roasters, we all need good business, because bankrupt businesses are not sustainable. So that's where we have to start. For our practices, it's all about the quality, the yield, and the traceability. These are the sustainable business drivers. So it isn't about just giving a certain amount of money and telling them to do something and leaving. We invest much time and build many strong networks so that the continuation of good agricultural practices can happen, so that there can be this quality and quantity delivered over time. Well, many of you who know about the sustainability piece and the different certification labels do ask, so there are several out there. How is UTZ different in this? It's a crowded playing field, and if I speak about coffee, we're only talking about some major ones like fair trade, rainforest, UTZ. organic, cafe practice, AAA, things like that. Imagine when you go to other products, you have hundreds of labels. So if I look at oats within the coffee, cocoa, tea piece, what we really press upon our clients that we work with, it's not about a label. Nobody's ever going to get up and drink an oats cup of coffee. They're getting up and drinking your coffee. The coffee you've gone out and found, and it's great and it fits your cafe. It's what you want to bring to the market. What we're about is the assurance behind your coffee that it's produced in a sustainable way, for those who want to know that. Because you want to have this great coffee, it needs to be produced in a way which is good, and that's what you're showing. It's about driving entrepreneurship. We're very big on farmers being better businessmen. They produce a better quality coffee for which they will get a better market price. It's not a handout of a price. We don't set a minimum. We're a market-based organization. Good quality product, just like you. When you have a good business, you have a good quality product, customers keep coming back and they pay for it. It's the same dynamic we need to teach producers. It's about creating a supply. At the end of the day, there's a demand for sustainable supply, and we're a tool in helping to create that supply. We're leading in traceability. We have a very strict traceability program, and we work hard to keep it innovative. We've just come out with a new edition of it, which is currently a lot of work for many of our importers and exporters, but we have to be very strict on the traceability. The other piece to oats is we are, for keeping the cost low, we have positioned ourselves to be in the piece of the mainstream. If we look back 30 years ago, fair trade started to give them their place in, I will call it the history of sustainability. They woke everybody up to the fact that there was a problem out there, that we needed to look at smallholders and how things were going. They came up with a system which worked for them at that time. In the 70s, rainforest came along. It was the time of Earth Day and Earth and biodiversity. They set up in Central America and they said, look, we've got to take a look at natural resources, biodiversity. 10 years ago, oats was started with a Guatemalan producer and industry player in Holland. And their look at it was from a high volume piece. Where oats fits in the market is for the high volume. We want to bring sustainable product in high volume. And how do you do that? Because it was seen as very niche. It was seen for the consumer who wakes up in the morning, puts his hand in his pocket and says, you know what, I'll pay extra for that fair trade chocolate bar. I'll pay extra for that fair trade coffee. Also, it's a marketing name. Though a consumer who buys a fair trade product gets up to buy a fair trade coffee and chocolate bar. Specifically what we're not after. Because there is that consumer. I'm not denying that. But it's less than 10% in 30 years. So what it's showing us is the consumer's not willing to pay with his wallet at the end of the day, not our big piece. 60 to 70% of our consumers who go into the Aldis and the Lidls and the Walmarts and buy the Smuckers of the world, they want to know that the company behind it did their research. They want to know, yeah, you know, I want to pick that product up that I have always liked. I really don't want to have to look into it. I certainly don't want to have to pay too much more for it. But I want the company to be a good company. I want to be able to stand at the party and say, hey, I bought coffee from those guys and they're okay. And that's where we're looking at the market. So we need high volumes, we need commitment over time, and we need to keep the costs low. Because otherwise it stays in niche, and we'll never get it out of niche. And already, within certification, coffee certification is less than 10% of the world market. So we're already niche. But within that, we try to be the most mainstream organization of them all. But there's a long way to go. And I think when we get to 60, 70, 80% of the coffee market, then the three programs can all fight about who has what. But while we all remain less than 10%, I'd say there's a lot we can all do. So it's all about where you position us in the market. So we have a very set code of conduct. We have our requirements of better farming methods, better working conditions, better care for nature and the people side. Our contribution to that then is a better crop, therefore better income, a better environment and better life. It's just an easy way to look at it. This is essential to the backbone of oats. The producer increased income. We're looking at increasing productivity, quality, and efficiency to lead to higher incomes from the farmers, and then take care of the rest. So it isn't that we don't have a social piece. Our code has to meet ILO convention just as all the other codes do. It's not that we don't have an environmental piece. We have very strict water regulations. There's soil checks. There's learning the use of fertilizers, which gives instant cost efficiencies. So I, for instance, went to Honduras, and the producer said, yeah, you know, I used to go to the store and just buy a little bit of everything. Sprinkle it around, and we'd see what would happen. By working with an agronomist, having a soil sample done, he learns what he has to use, instantly getting cost efficiency and a productivity gain. So it's just small things like that. What we want to do here is make sure that the cake, the middle piece, is what they're growing. So increase your quality means you will get a better price for your product, thereby increasing price. Increase your productivity per hectare, you get a better living income. At the moment, the pink piece on top is a premium. We call it the icing on the cake. It's the piece that we need the producers not to be focused on, and they're only focused on premium at the moment. We need it, it's the carrot, but in the long term, we need the producers to be understanding that it's growing the cake which is going to matter, and not the icing on the top. That's where, for us, it gets into working with big roasters around the world. If we can make commitments of quality and quantity over time, we can get them out of looking at the icing on the cake piece. Because when we get into the premium war, it all becomes very difficult. And let's face it, with the prices of coffee, I think when you're talking 3, 4, 5 cent premiums, this isn't the discussion that one should have with a producer. UTZ itself is a worldwide based organization. Our headquarters is in Amsterdam, but we have offices in Japan. I'd love to start one in Australia. We have a network of 12 agronomists around the world, based in our major regions, Brazil, Vietnam, Kenya, many of them. So we have coffee from 23 different origins, and we sell in 42 different countries. This year we will reach about 478,000 metric tons of coffee is certified UTZ around the world. When there's an UTZ label on a product, it means it's 90% certified. We call it the 100%, but we need to allow some room for our big roasters with silos, with things which can go wrong. So it is 90% in the package, as opposed to the 30% with rainforest. Transparency to the consumer is very important, and we will sell 160,000, we hope, around 160,000 tons of UTZ certified this year. The organization in itself, it's a standard and a traceability system. If I take the two pillars out from the middle, I call it the heart of the organization, because we are an internationally recognized code and a traceability system. At the end of the day, we're not a certification, actually, at all, because we have third-party certifiers who certify that a producer reaches these criteria, or that a warehouse has their chain of custody. In our field development, the premise is to raise and maintain the number of farmers working in accordance with the UTZ requirements and vision, purely a supply and demand. We need to get more and more producers into a system so that they're producing in a sustainable way. We focus on partnerships with capacity builders in field. We don't do it all ourselves. We work with many organizations to do the trainings around the world. The way we do it, we need to be able to scale up. So we're trying to do things like, we have an e-learning project in Colombia. We do a lot with pictograms. We do a lot of training lead farmers to train others, to set up groups who can carry out the work. Because of course we cannot do it just with the 50 people we have based in the organization. They go to training sessions. An agronomist comes out and assesses if an organization is ready. They organize themselves with an ICS, an internal control system. Learning by doing, learning by training. And we make many, many different kinds of tools to train them. At the end of the process, it's, are they ready for the audit? And that's when any of the third-party auditors come out and do an audit and can check off whether they meet the criteria of the code and can put UTZ on their farm. So what's in it for the farmers? At the end of the day, it's improved farming and managerial practices. That's our #1 goal. Many, many managerial practices because, of course, for the traceability piece, they need to learn how to keep records. So the good agricultural practices for production, quality and better efficiency. Then they learn better terms of trade, and we also work, of course, on the living and working conditions. What can farmer training and certification do? What's important for me in this slide is that at the end of the day, it's about the training. It's about the best practices of the farmer, it's about continuity, and it's about effective assurance to the rest of the world. At the end of the day, if we didn't need labels, it would just be about teaching good agricultural practices when it becomes a norm, and we could leave it there. For the moment, we have to add in the certification piece as well to create that value in the chain and to be able to use it for assurance. Impact. I just put 3 slides in. It's important to keep in mind because it is essential to these programs. We need to show impact of the programs because the impact is what you are able to show in your businesses. So we have lots of different stories on economic impact, productivity, efficiency, quality. These are things the producers give themselves. We try to make sure that every producer supplies us with their stories each year, which comes back into the traceability system in a minute. Achievements in social areas and achievement in environmental areas. The way that some of these can be used by our partners is that with this traceability system, if this trace button is hit, and on a package of coffee there's a best of date. This best of date can be put into our web system, traceability system, and when you hit that, the story of the coffee from that package will come up. So that's the point of, we also try to motivate our producers to put their stories in and to understand that it also has an effect in market. So these are some of the partners that we work with. Some of them have a traceability system as well. For those, I know some of you had asked the differences between fair trade, rainforest and UTZ. There's a focus difference in each of them. Fair trade feels that they should influence trade and price. The perception in market is around people. Rainforest, very much about biodiversity and the planet. And UTZ looks at the entrepreneurship, improving quality, yield, and the profit piece. Recently, we have moved to a farming piece. I think what's important with that is we were set up with the idea that we leave the marketing piece. We're not a marketing bureau. We don't want to market the name UTZ. We didn't want to market the label of UTZ. I think it's a noble way to go. I think it was too early. I think the two founders had hoped it could just be a B2B system. It would just be about supply. But it's too early for that. The marketers need something to hang on to. And the problem is the profit pillar is not very sexy. You know, saving people, saving poor ragged farmers is really nice. And frogs, you know, I don't know, everybody thinks they're fuzzy and warm, I guess. So we needed to come up with something as well, looking at our piece of where are we strong. Well, if we say it's all about quality and quantities and productivity and efficiency, how do we make that digestible for the consumer? So this year we went into a new payoff, which is better farming, better future, which is being picked up very well in Europe. And we'll see how we can help to build awareness on sustainability and have the customer understand who we are using better farming, better future. So the power of UTZ, it's farming is at its core. It's what we're all about. And we feel it's really the starting point for change. By improving farming, we can improve the whole chain of events for people, planet, and profit. So the UTZ has many sides to it. And every side we want is to lead to improvement. So overall, we can conclude that something's better. We do something so that something else becomes better. And these simple words can be used then for the marketers in market. So quality for all, that's better. In the consumer connection piece, We use the quality of products to talk about good farmers. We use good agricultural practices. Story can be used to talk about how water's saved, how there's an increased impact on nature and global warming. So as you can see here, what I'm trying to do is take it all the way from a B2B, all the way from purely it's about good agricultural practices, working with farmers in origin, which is what our teams do on one side to create supply, purely create supply for the big roasters who need to meet the needs of sustainability. Because commitments are being made, especially in Europe, all over now, to by 2015, 100% of, doesn't matter, coffee, cocoa, tea, whatever, supermarkets. We have Albert Heijn in Holland who has said that by 2015 all of their ingredients will be sustainable. They have 6,000 ingredients. So who knows how they're planning to do that. But these things have to be prepared. So that's a pure B2B side. Then there is the B2C side on how do you connect this for the mid-range, for the smaller range. How do you connect this to the consumer? And that's where you need the traceability and the stores. Our coffee partners at the moment in Australia, IKEA, the Coffee Club, some of these Makona and Banjos. I think we have some people here from DE, so we do a lot of work with them. Piazza d'Oro, Lavazza in Australia also has goods. And we're working on getting some more. You may know the Kit Kat. The Kit Kat bar in Australia now has good certified cocoa in it. The cocoa business is booming. Cocoa is a very interesting story in the sense totally different from coffee. We started in coffee 10 years ago and in cocoa basically only 2 years ago, really in market side. Cocoa approached sustainability from a sourcing side. So very interesting. It came in very much as B2B sourcing. We need quality and we're really running out of what we need. How do we do this? And the big players sat together around the table and said, what are we going to do? We need instantaneous good agricultural practice training. So we work with cocoa very much from a sourcing side, whereas coffee is still in a marketing piece. And we need coffee to move more to sourcing, to understand that it's about the economic principles of supply, rather than just talking about which labels go on a pack. In Germany, it's one of our biggest, fastest growing markets in sustainability, and very interesting because it brings in the supermarket side. So it brings in how do you bring in high volumes at a cost-efficient price and tell something to your consumer that they don't really want to know too much. So it's a shift in talking about it in a corporate report versus putting labels all over packages. At the end of the day, the big 5 roasters will work with all of us, for sure. And it will move out of labels and it will be called, this is sustainable product in package. New cocoa launches. Products we have in Japan at the Ito Yokado stores. Migros, we're doing tea, the iced tea market. It's a new market for us. And I will leave it with that. My final thought, before I'm going to just, Oud celebrated its 10-year anniversary on the 10th of October. I'm just going to end with our film on that because I think it's a nice way to give you a summary. My final thought I'd like to share with you is sustainability is not about philanthropy or going green. It's about managing risk, generating value, and ensuring the long-term viability of an enterprise. It's from Deloitte. From myself, we have to secure our future, and it's about availability, accountability, and credibility.